Good morning. I want to thank Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara for being here this morning, Treasurer Fiona Ma for their incredible partnership and support on this important legislation that we're introducing today. The Treasurer couldn't be here today because of logistics around her testimony at the House Finances Services Committee in D.C., but her collaboration on this bill is greatly appreciated. And I'd like to thank the firefighters behind us and advocates and members of the media who turned out today. Turns at Sac Fire is in the house, and there was a medical emergency here, and they responded and took care of business as they always do. You know, all this rain we're having this month underscores the risks of flood and mudslides. At the same time, we can't forget that due to climate change, this state becomes a tinderbox during our over-expanded fire season. Last year, more than 6,000 separate wildfires broke out across the state, destroying a combined 876,000 acres, leveling thousands of homes, and tragically killing 104 people. The last 2 years saw the most destructive wildfires in California's history, with insured losses totaling over $24 billion. The cost of responding to these deadly infernos has also been record-setting. Last year alone, the state of California spent $947 million on fire suppression and emergency response, exceeding our allocated budget of nearly $450 million. That's a lot of money, and it doesn't even include the billions we've spent on recovery. The unexpected disaster expense creates extreme budget uncertainty and takes away from other vital services and reduces our ability to protect against future disasters. It could also lead to a cycle of boom and bust, forcing us to maintain huge reserves or face cuts elsewhere, especially during recessions. To prevent that, we've come up with a plan that brings predictability to our state coffers in a time of disaster, allowing us to reliably fund state services. Under the California Disaster Insurance Act, which I introduced today, the governor, working with the insurance commissioner and treasurer, could enter into an insurance policy that pays out when we have these unexpected disaster expenses. It's a creative strategy that lets us harness the insurance market to stabilize the state's emergency firefighting budget and frees up resources for wildfire prevention. We wouldn't be the first state to embark on such a course of risk reduction through insurance. The state of Oregon has been doing so for the past 40 years. And it's worked for them. They've paid out about $60 million in premiums, but just got back over $100 million in claims. It could mean a lot for California. For one thing, insuring our state against risk allows us to invest more into critical disaster response and prevention efforts, like our firefighting mutual aid system, forest management, and flood protection. The state would only secure insurance on terms that benefit taxpayers. The bottom line is, this is a smart approach to one of the biggest challenges ever faced by the state of California, and that is how to keep the public safe without breaking the bank. The Disaster Insurance Act is part of the solution I'm proud to introduce this morning, and now I'd like to turn it over to Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I want to thank Senator Dodd and again thank our Sac Fire Department and all the firefighters for the work that they've done. You know, with back-to-back fire seasons of the most destructive wildfires, the costs keep rising, as Senator Dodd mentioned. We have seen the heroic actions of our firefighters saving lives and property in the most extreme situations, and we want to commend them for their work. We need to make sure that we have all the resources they need when they need them. Today, I'm proud to join Senator Dodd on announcing this new plan that will better position our state for the future. California Disaster Insurance Act authorizes the state to purchase insurance on our wildfire fighting funds. The governor, myself, and the treasurer will work together to maintain our ability to fight fires and protect taxpayers against unpredictable costs. This is what it means. Currently, we hold these funds in reserve. Our budget staff estimate how much money the wildfires will cost, and then we move more money when we need it, essentially self-insuring this money and paying out of pocket for our firefighting. In 7 of the last 10 years, our costs have overrun our budget projections by $450 million in 2017 alone. FEMA reimburses some of the cost, but years later, after we've already spent the money and after we have to negotiate with them, and so it takes much more time. The California Disaster Insurance Act is a much better solution. It works just like your home insurance, but for our actual state. You pay a premium each year, and we are protected. If a disaster strikes, once you cover the deductible, the plan pays you back for your losses. By utilizing our existing emergency funds for insurance, we can make that actual fund work for all of us and for all of California. As Senator Dodd mentioned, there is a similar product out there for the state of Oregon. On the national level, FEMA has been buying insurance to cover its disasters responses to storms since 2017. Insurance paid out to help cover the devastation from Hurricane Harvey in Houston. The California Disaster Act that we're being proposed today supports our governor's efforts to spend strategically on fire prevention while giving us unprecedented budget predictability. With a more predictable budget, we can use more tools and utilize other strategies to help us fight in these efforts. I want to take a moment to commend the governor's leadership on addressing forest fires in our state. As part of the governor's strike team, I'm engaging in the insurance industry to create new innovative approaches. We need to be open to new products and models that reduce the risk for our communities and our budget. This bill is our first response. We know that homeowners are finding it more challenging to obtain insurance due to climate-driven disasters and events. This is not going to change until we make California much more resilient. Investing in our prevention will have a positive impact on the availability and affordability of insurance throughout the entire state. The bill will empower us to make sustained investments we need for a more resilient community. Just like any insurance policy, this is giving us a choice. If the premiums are too high, we can walk away. If the insurance policy is not in the best interest of our state, we can always walk away. Like our governor, we choose to move forward. Our environmental community has ideas about how we can invest in resilient communities. Our insurance industry has ideas of how to reduce risk in our state. Once we have the authority given in this bill, we can bring people together and develop a product that works for everyone. We can use a parametric approach, like the numbers of acreage burned, or we can use a much cost approach to determine like how much we spent on fire suppression. We are open to these different approaches. We owe it to California to be creative and find a way to protect our communities and our budget. The California Disaster Insurance Act is our first step. Thank you so much. And we'll take questions at this point. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Laura. And congratulations on your election as well.
Thank you.
For the insurance policy, what incentive for an insurance company would there to be to basically make an investment in California's wildfire industry? It didn't seem to work out too well for PG&E.
Well, what we're looking is, as we're seeing this climate change continue to be a big issue for us here in California, we have to engage the insurance industry in these creative models. We have had preliminary discussions. There is a willingness to have a conversation as part of the governor's strike team. We're having these discussions now, but we want to have that authority first to be able to engage them and see if there's interest. We know that just on preliminary discussions, there's an interest there. Again, everybody's trying to figure out how we become much more creative and utilize our budget to make sure that we're creating the right policy to cover the state given these unprecedented fires.
So what's the incentive for insurance companies? What, in your preliminary discussions with them, why is this something they would have an interest in?
This is an interest because this is something that's not going away, and we have to make sure by making sure that we are engaging insurers in a statewide policy, we feel that it'll incentivize them to create more affordability and availability at the local level. And again, demonstrating that the state is willing to engage with them in these new products is critical for them to engage at the community level as well. And we've seen that interest so far as part of my meetings with them.
I think to expound on that, the other thing is the resiliency programs that are being required now of our utilities, the weather monitoring stations, the things that we're doing on the ground through SB 901 with the more healthy forests, managing our forests is better. That risk, every year becomes less and less. It's going to be that short period of time that may be a question, but generally what it's going to be is it's going to be the insurance industry is going to have a choice to do this or not do this, but generally what they do is they'll insure anything for a price. So I think as our state programs and the amount of money that we're investing up front on pre-positioning our assets out in the field and doing these weather stations, I think there will be interest.
Quick question. I know there's an emphasis on the wildfire season, but this is labeled disaster insurance. Do you foresee it covering earthquakes or other tsunamis, because we're a coast, and
Right.
so do
Floods.
you see it?
Right, you want to?
Yep. Essentially, yes. On floods, California's got a lot of areas that are prone to floods. We think this is, absolutely appropriate in that regard too.
So this would be sort of a broad disaster policy. And then just to expand, it seems like it says the governor, the insurance commissioner, and treasurer would negotiate these. Would it be something, if this passed, that would have to go through the legislature every year through the budget, or would it just sort of be up to the executive branch?
Yeah, this would be, well, the way this bill is crafted is just giving us the authority to go into have these discussions of what a plan would look like. We anticipate it being an ongoing discussion in the governor's office as they prepare their budget and they make budgetary decisions when it comes to this specific fund.
Cool. And you said you're on the strike team. Have you guys met yet? And like, what kind of conversations are? I assume it'll go well beyond just this.
Absolutely, we've met several times now, and we're engaging all interested parties. And as you hear in the governor's State of the State, we have 60 days to come up with different plans and solutions, and so we're working hard.
Does this plan have the approval of the governor? Has he expressed interest?
No, we're very early on in the legislative process. This is a plan that, again, goes in line with my SB 30 from last year, which creates the Climate Insurance Working Group. This is an idea that we've had on the books for a while, and we thank Senator Dodd for his leadership in taking this on.
Yeah, there should be no reason why the governor wouldn't support. I mean, look, he's going to make his mind up. I would think that there's no reason why he would not support this, as it gives him yet another tool, along with the insurance commissioner and the treasurer, to be able to make the determination on behalf of the taxpayers of the state of California. Because that's really, at the end of the day, if it's a good value for the taxpayers, the decision they'll make is to do it. If it's not good, and at the beginning the rates are too high, they don't have to do it. It's just a tool in their tool belt.
Well, speaking of the rates, what are you guys looking at? I mean, what's the possibility here? I mean, you mentioned that you can walk away, but it's California wildfire season. Insurers are in a business. What are you looking at?
Well, I mean, we've had just very minimal conversations about the opportunity to be able to either reinsure, insure, or take some bonds out of this fund. The mechanisms and the details have yet to be determined. In terms, what we're seeking here is simply the authority, and we would look at all the details in terms of what a rate would look like and for how long and so forth. So we're just in the preliminary stages of giving us that authority to engage the industry on figuring out what a model would look like, and that would benefit California.
What's the difference between insure and reinsure?
Well, so you take out an insurance policy, and then you insure that insurance policy with reinsurance. So we're leaving it open to everyone, hence why we want the treasurer involved should we decide to go through a bond process as well. So it's bringing all of us together, coming up with the best insurance, reinsurance, or bond process to be able to give us the best bang for our buck.
What do you mean by bond process, if you may?
I'm sorry, either taking out bonds on
Instead of this?
instead of this. So we're leaving it all open to our discussions as we engage the treasurer, the governor, and our department.
You mean municipal bonds, right? Or,
No, it would be a state bond. This is a
or
state.
you mean, so the state would issue bonds to
Correct,
pay for that?
correct.
Okay.
And the whole idea here is to transfer the risk from the state of California and the amount of money that we have to invest to the insurance markets. And and to your point, again, this bill is not going to be, let's just say it goes all the way through the Senate and the Assembly, and the governor signs the bill. So it's the first of next year. Now we're working on this. We have to put tools, again, in the tool belt for us to be able to, as we are making our forests more resilient, making our energy systems throughout the state of California safer, that's still, because of the climatic changes that have happened with climate change, it's still not going to be enough. And so to say that we're not going to move down the line with this because we're worried about high rates at the beginning wouldn't, I think, be fair to the taxpayers. Transferring this risk is an important opportunity if and when we can do it.
When you're talking about covering out the disasters, it's just to the extent of state budget money that you have set aside. Like if you have $50 million set aside for earthquake protection, that you're writing a policy against what you set aside for
Exactly.
different types of disasters.
Exactly.
This would seem to dwarf Oregon's wildfire costs.
Correct.
Um,
Correct.
really
But if you look,
dwarf it. Any sense, would this be the largest? I don't know how it.
well,
works
FEMA
versus-
FEMA has the largest.
FEMA is largest.
So, and just to give you an example, in 2005, Hurricane Katrina cost FEMA $16 billion. In 2012, Superstorm Sandy cost FEMA $8 billion. So in 2017, they engaged in both in their insurance policy. Their policy triggered in 2018, providing FEMA close to $1 billion in coverage. So that we see that as the largest. Thank you.
Terrence,
Oh, go ahead.
One last question. You talked about being innovative as we're in this new world or new abnormal or climate change. Can you expound a little bit on what products do you foresee for homeowners, especially in high-risk fire
Absolutely.
areas?
Absolutely. It's clear after visiting Paradise that we're going to have a challenge with the availability and affordability of an insurance product for people to rebuild, to be able to build more resilient, and for those that may not had or just had partial loss, be able to continue to have a product to insure their home. So when I mean about how do we become much more creative is looking at new products that are going to allow us to insure these vulnerable communities moving forward. And we're putting everything on the table. And so we're engaging with the industry now and as part of the governor's strike team.
Were there any examples or other products out there, whether?
We're looking internationally, we're looking domestically, we're looking at every possible solution to figure out how we can craft something that's unique to California.
As far as just the mechanisms and procedures of this, so clears the Assembly, clears the Senate, governor signs it. Does this give the insurance commissioner, the governor, and the treasurer the power to go into this right away, or is there like starting in 2020?
Yeah, well, it'll depend on if we put an urgency clause or what we amend into the bill in terms of when we can start negotiating. But this would then allow us to start entering into crafting a policy that we can all work together and hopefully works for the entire state. So this is just the authority. And once we're granted that authority, we can start engaging with the insurance industry on what a product would look like.
And just evaluating the timeline up to here, either of you feel that the state has been too reactive to addressing this wildfire problem?
Well, definitely this approach allows us to be much more proactive and gives us much more predictability, again, depending on what metrics we're going to use in terms of what triggers the policy. So we're putting everything on the table as we speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking time.
No problem.
Appreciate it.